Now we're a little past, we're almost 20 minutes after the hour. So I'd like to start the webinar. And to begin with, for those who don't know me, my name is Peter McKinnon, and I've been drafted to be the chair of this group for a while. And I'd like to introduce Bogdan uh, Bogdan Motoc as our speaker today. He's an electrical engineer by training, and he's a humanist by passion. And I think you'll come to recognize this as he goes through his presentation today. It's going to be, as you all know, it's titled there Coevolution with Our Creations. And he's just in the few minutes of conversation as you were joining in, you'd hear bits of this, but about intelligence, both human and machine, our agency, and whether we end up with agency in our robots, for example, and then humanity as part of the passion here. So Bogdan has had a long history. He's been working for about 40 years in a variety of areas where not only has he applied his expertise in engineering to focus on safety critical engineering, he's also been an enterprise architect, an entrepreneur, and clearly you'll see it from today also a systems thinker. His work is focused on exploring uh, how human intelligence, machine intelligence, and organizational agency co-evolved. And I think this will be a rather interesting topic. He's also the author of multiple works on collaboration, governance, and technological power. And over to you, Bogdan, for your presentation. And we look forward to hearing from you. And our typical rule for those who are listening in is if you have a question or comment, to flag it in the chat, and we'll get going from there. So over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Peter, for the introduction, and thank you, everybody else, for your time and attention. The discussions that we had already are taking out probably 5 or 6 slides. But that's good, and that's very good news for me because it tells me that there is interest.
Yes.
The um, um, the anchor for this presentation is in the fact that new technologies open old questions, and the one that we're focusing on is the humanity and AI. So AI has its at least its moment of glory for now, and um, its impact on us, it's not yet fully defined. It's searching its way. Um, I wanted to project right from the beginning the couple of my strong beliefs, and this is that um, we just see what we see out of a infinite immensity of details. We have been optimized to survive in an efficient way, energetically efficient way. And that's what we understand out of the world out there. Adding all the miracles of microscopes and telescopes and space technology and quantum mechanics and so, we're just touching God knows how an infinity, how little percentage of what's actually reality. The second belief is that what you do matters much more than what you're talking about. So ultimately, what defines us, what gives us our identity, is what we do. And the third belief is that biological life is essentially social. So whatever other claims we might come with, whatever other stories about selfish genes and so on and so on, they are all projected in cooperation, in appreciating diversity and finding a place for diversity. And when I'm saying diversity, I'm referring specifically to different capabilities for each individual, so to speak. This is a high level of the discussion now. And again, I want to flag one of my concerns is that we're moving through very interesting but complex topics. So initially, I'm going to present quickly some of the models and methodologies that I'm using when discussing about the rest of the topics. And then I've arranged them in a way in which it seemed to me that we will create most of the connections. So very quick fly through the challenges of survival in a changing context. Ultimately, whatever we do, the survival is the motivation. And I'll clarify what survival means. It's not necessary physical presence. Then a quick fly through the AI between Andrew and Stephen. Probably we've touched some core points here. Then a quick fly through what life means. How do life forms emerge? The presentation is centered on our species, but as you're going to see, our ontogeny, the steps that humans take in becoming adults and senior, are actually replicas of phylogenetic progress from single cells to social animals. Then aspects of co-evolution that would put AI and life together in a hopefully sustainable manner, and then discussions. Models and methodologies. I have dogs. I love dogs. They have a very, very open and honest character, most of them. The modeling tools that I've used throughout my books and the papers that I've published are the guiding tools in this presentation too. And listing them here: scientific method, enterprise architecture, utility networks, where utility is the function that an entity provides, not the classic meaning of utility. Systems and their defining functions. Autopoiesis, which is a 1976 model for life and living. Learning. Some models for brains that address, for example, Stephen's perspective on the unconscious and the functional miracles that reside there. And then a little stop on stories and what they do as they project in the LLMs and the AI functionality of today. I'll do my best to rush through slides, so wherever there is something that's not clear or so, please flag it. Rush through flags because we have roughly 60 of them. So a scientific method. You get an idea, you form a hypothesis, you spin into it until you're comfortable. Actually, the spinning goes this way. Until you're comfortable that what you came with, it's of relevance to the rest, and then you share it, and then it enters the community of expertise review. And once blessed, it becomes a theory. In this whole process, there is no whole truth. Yeah, again, as I suggested in the beliefs, we touch just a small fraction of the reality out there. So our theories, however complex, with whatever amount of mathematics they might be supported, they're just a perspective to very complex space. Enterprise architecture, which is without shame truncated here by me, is a methodology that came from the IT world in the effort to bring coherence between IT understanding and development and business intent. And it frequently loses its own reason of being. But what I pulled out is that architecture is the capture and model of motivations that sit behind an enterprise. Where enterprise, it's an endeavor, it's an action. And the purpose of the enterprise architecture is to have your motivations well defined and further linked to whatever other steps you take in implementing that enterprise. So if you add God knows, a doorknob or a pedal or a button on a control panel, you better know why are you adding it, because it's going to have an impact both on the cost and the efficiency and the usability and so on, as well as on satisfying various requirements and constraints and regulatory demands and so on and so on. So I found enterprise architecture of tremendous significance. I've used it for the last 15 years. And it has applications, as I've listed here, name them: corporate governance, national governance, product and project management, life guidance, child education and growth, whatever domain you pick, knowing why you do and knowing how your investments get justified and how your investments impact whatever you care for matters. Again, because it's a passion, this is one of my last high budget projects. It's a smart electric vehicle. It's autonomous, intended for amusement parks. And I'm not sure how visible. Anyway, it's a community of AI controllers. Each of the 8 motors that move this vehicle has its own brain. The enterprise architecture for this project has in 3,000 and something nodes and well over 15,000 interdependencies between the nodes. Extremely difficult. The budget for this was 25 million US. The final expenses were in 27 million. The vehicle got internationally certified as a safe vehicle. It was produced in 3 years, and that gives me the due confidence of the value of enterprise architecture as a tool. Utility networks. Utility utility networks are an intermediate step towards understanding systems. They have reference in the AI from a tokenization, from a tessellation point of view, from taking the soup, the big reality, and chopping it in items that you're interested in. And the significant relevance of utility networks is that when they become self-sustainable, so when they move towards life and living, they get a specific structural signature. This is a power law distribution of connectivity of each of the nodes. The technical term would be centrality of nodes. So biological utility networks show this power law distribution that trivially has been captured by the Pareto law, by the 80-20 rule, and so on and so on. But it's much deeper, and it's present everywhere out there. Everywhere means whatever species, whatever form of biological organization, whatever form of social organization or nation. If you want to put a metric to the health of a nation or to the health of an organization, from my point of view, all you would have to do is plot your centrality signature and measure what's the alpha parameter for that curve. And that's going to tell you how stable and how resilient is that organization. Sorry, love them. Systems, Russell Ackoff is still the guru. Of course, he passed away, but his knowledge is with us. Basically, a system, it's a minimal and sufficient set of entities that provide a specific function. That function becomes that system's identity. It's what tells the rest of the world what that is. Yeah. Of course, systems are models. They're not out in the physical world. They're in the conceptual world. But for example, if you can sit on it and ignore the rest, then the defining function is that a chair holds you at a certain height from the ground. And so the defining function is always significant from what a certain entity is. Autopoiesis, enterprise architecture, they're my passion. Autopoiesis was initially defined as a way of understanding life, proposed in 1976 by Maturana and Varela, two professors in Chile. This is Salvador Allende's Chile. The relevance of Salvador Allende is that he was a university-trained president that wanted to implement a cybernetic control of the society. So he wanted to bring what AI and LLMs might bring in a future to our species, so machine-assisted governance. And cybernetics is a precursor of AI from a certain perspective. And at the bottom, I'm proud, I spoke about autopoiesis, enterprise architecture, and governance at Harvard in 2013. More about autopoiesis. Activities of a living entity can be grouped in two clusters. One cluster deals with internal balance, and I called it intrinsic autopoiesis. The other cluster of activities, it's called in the original material structural coupling, and represents the entity's ability to integrate in the context. And a significant concept within the autopoietic model is the notion of languaging. It's not language, it's not verbal interaction. It's languaging as in embodied interaction, as in the changes that happen in the entities that get engaged in a certain relation. And languaging is present. Of course, it was proposed and documented with examples back in 1976. You find it at the cellular level, at the biochemical level, at the cognitive level in neural structures, at the social level, at the political level, and so on. If we watch the today's political or to yesterday's political scene, there is a lot of languaging that goes way beyond the language that is used. So autopoiesis, languaging, intrinsic, and structural coupling. I just wanted to check, is this the right way of proceeding?
Yes, this is going fine, Bogdan.
I'm just taking some of the mind models that I found as most relevant. And of course, with no disrespect to what's out there, and I haven't mentioned here Carl Gustav Jung, who's one of my mentors, so to speak, from a mind perspective. But I took these models because they're simple and they have relevance in the understanding the artificial intelligence and the human growth too. So there are two individuals that I wanted to present here. Kahneman, who proposed the notion of system 1 and system 2 as relevant to understanding minds. And system 1, it's the pattern identification and implementation part of the mind. It's mostly sitting in the unconscious mind. And it's partially determined by our genome, by what capabilities the genetic implementation gives, and partially determined by the growth experiences that we have. It is pretty much hardwired in its significant majority of capabilities, and it's equivalent, if we would project it to LLMs, to the trained LLM, to the trained AI. So system one components of the mind have relatively low plasticity. If we take an individual temperament, it's formed intrauterine and it's stable for the rest of one's life unless you have physical damage to the brain. System 2 is composed of the learning components. System 2 is as energetically expensive, and it's there to adjust whatever System 1 didn't catch in the historical phylogenetic progress of the genome. System 2, it's easily orders of magnitude more costly from an energetic point of view than System 1, and as such, it's also slow. And another attribute is that it's lazy. So if System 1 flags, raises the hand, it's saying, no, I know what that is. System 2 might give up. From a reductionist and holistic point of view, Ian McGilchrist is the expert that I have a great appreciation for. And he's proposing that the two hemispheres of our brain, in my mind, mind is much more than the brain. Mind is distributed and includes the body and even beyond body. But if we stop at brains, the left hemisphere, it's reductionist in nature. So it applies the scientific method, it cuts and divides, and it ignores the links that would spread and complicate the challenges and so on. So the left hemisphere is focused on the task, and it doesn't care about philosophy. The right hemisphere is dealing with integration, with holism, with making sure that while you deal with a certain thing that it's right in front of you, you don't miss a more significant change or event that is happening somewhere else. In probably influenced by the movies that I've seen, the reductionist, the left hemisphere, it's your sniper that looks at the target and it's totally focused on the target, while the holistic component of the mind is the spotter, the entity that keeps the larger view on what's happening, wind speed, changes in the context, and other dangers that might show up. A third model that I added here is the Paul MacLean model of the triune brain. The model proposes a very simplified structure of the brain in three components. The oldest, it's called the reptilian brain. The next one would be the paleomammalian brain. And the most recent one is the neomammalian brain. The relevance of this of MacLean's model is that we as neomammalians, as humans, have all this layered represented, and there is a certain functional dependency. When life is kind to us, so when we can handle the challenges we're facing, we live in the neomammalian layer of our mind. So we can be rational. The patterns that we have are social patterns that encourage socialization and so on. When stressed, we abandon the neomammalian layer, which is the frontal cortex, and so of the brain. And we go deep into the paleomammalian. The signature of the paleomammalian is emotions. We are social and driven by emotions. The care for kids, for the next generation, the care for the kin, and so on, are sitting in the paleomammalian. But when you feel that you want to yell at somebody, that's a clear sign that you've gone down from the neomammalian into your paleomammalian layers. And below that, we have the reptilian layer, which is survival related. It drops a series of motivations that we consider as natural in the reptilian world. Anything that's different than you, it's a potential prey, a potential thing to attack and try and use for your survival in a way or another. So when you become aggressive towards anything that's different, be that race, be that gender, be that education related, be that whatever, you have sunk into the reptilian layers of one's mind. And this, of course, this travel up and down, it's reversible if you can address the level of stress that you're under. And I've added there the survival experience that it's contained in each of the layers. So neomammalian is roughly 2 million years old. Paleomammalian, which are the mammifers out there, the species, 250, 300 million years of prototyping and pushing forward what worked. And the reptilian, it's the rest of 3.2 billion. Story pattern, it's all our stories package knowledge and transfer knowledge. As Peter was mentioning in the early discussions in this call, it's amazing the power of knowledge transfer that stories have. And the pattern here is can be decomposed in exposition, escalation, climax, which is not the final result of a fight, but it's the decision to engage in that final fight that sets the story further. Resolution, yeah, you're solving whatever, you've picked up the broken glass and put it in the garbage or whatever. And then the conclusion, the calm and serene part that follows solving a challenge. The reason I'm bringing story structure in here is because I put an accent on handling knowledge, both with AI and in the life emergence. And the pattern of a story will be relevant there. A quick discussion about survival, again, enterprise and knowledge. Quick. So you can survive in two ways, especially one is one new event occurs and you're just react to it and to compensate its negative impact as fast as you can and as strong as you can. And this is a very expensive form of survival. This would be in a way, the equivalent of System 1, the Kahneman System 1 that we've discussed. It's expensive because you have to be fast, and fast means breaking inertia, and it means also you have to have actuation that can break that inertia. The second way of survival requires knowledge, requires for the entity that wants to survive to focus and invest on collecting knowledge that allows it to identify what's happening and then predictively be ready and act to compensate. So if we take the metaphor of a bottle sitting at the edge of a table, the fast survival and expensive is to catch the bottle before it breaks. The knowledge-based survival is to push the bottle away from the edge to avoid the need for catching it. Of course, survival, I'm defining it persisting in time in a dynamic universe, in a changing universe. What persists is the identity. Knowledge is actionable information. It's the most compact definition, and it basically has two essential components. It's a trigger that activates the relevant knowledge, and then a script that can manifest in many ways. If we take the AI perspective, it's the activation of patterns that lead into the activation of a specific output value, or in sequential type of movements, if we talk about agents and technical agency and so on. The enterprise we've discussed, but enterprise depends on knowledge, depends on context that provides those triggers that allow you to activate the adequate knowledge. And it depends on something that it's still, in my opinion, biology related, which is the base case. It's the entity that acts on the knowledge. And of course, that entity increases in a recurrent fashion. For example, for us, for me, moving this finger like this, my hand like that, the base, it's cellular, and it keeps growing and growing and growing to the decision of movement, to the control of muscles, to the messaging that I have through that spinning movement of the fingers. So the base case is that struggle, that effort investment with engagement that is specific to life from the pre-cellular forms of organization, molecular agencies, to the highest forms of aggregations, social or ecological. AI, I'll try and fly quickly and not step on what was said. I wanted to make to signal that AI is a technology. It's a tool. There is nothing magic per se behind it. I created this, let's say, phylogenetic perspective for the technology. And I've put here the process of understanding and using algorithms, which have manifested more strongly, let's say, once we entered the digital revolution in the programming languages. Within programming languages, we've started to cluster out reusable aspects, and we've ended with categories, with classes and objects. So that's functions, libraries, classes, and then services, and then microservices, and all kind of other forms of modularity that gets composed. The very initial so-called AI attempts using rule machines with dedicated programming languages like Lisp and Prolog. And of course, they all have cousins and other programming relatives. With the fuzzy logic, which I find as a very relevant intermediate step, following by artificial neural networks and Bayesian computation and so on. Dates for artificial neural networks are well into the 1970s and so on, with the perceptron and some of the very early forms of capturing knowledge in networks. And the interesting thing that I found, the roots of the notion of artificial neural networks go way back in time to experiments with the jars that have electroconductive solutions and electrodes networked and adjusted either manually or through chemical processes to replicate the synaptic weights of the biological neurons. So this attempts go all the way back to Luigi Galvani. That's 1786 or so, mid 1800s, mid 1700s. And Galvani used the Leyden jars, which are capacitors, modulated in the level of charge in order to move muscles from living living frogs to be another interesting experience is the Gordon Pusk electrochemical year, and I'm missing the I think it's somewhere 1960s or so. This is a ferric solution that was depositing growing ferrous dendrites on copper plates, and he succeeded to build an artificial hearing ear that would identify different tones. And in the process, from artificial neural networks, we enter into the world of LLMs and agents, now that it's enabled by the growth that we had in processing and storage. The the most sophisticated LLM that you would take, it still has the core artificial neural networks. That's the fuzzy logic. The value I've used fuzzy logic. I took some training courses with Omron, which was the first company bringing out fuzzy logic controllers. And the reason I've put it here is because fuzzy logic makes one thing very clear. The rules that fuzzy logic works with are coming from human experts. So the fuzzy logic is a way of bringing the knowledge of multiple experts in a specific domain, converting it to rules in a way that enables vague inputs and vague decisions, and make that decision to lead to a crisp conclusion. This pattern is very clear in fuzzy logic, and in my opinion, it gets lost, although it is present in modern LLMs. The YLLMs, which is the architectural component of the LLM presence, is meaning making. So from my point of view, LLMs are meaning making machines. They go through specific steps that this whole design, which is the part that follows the motivation, the architecture, is fluctuating, and it changed significantly in the years, but it's starting to converge. And of course, we have qualitative jumps that are coming from new discoveries, many of them brought by the LLM itself to humans. But the design that we can talk about is tokenization, so taking the input story and dividing it, embedding into a meaning space, updating and normalizing the meaning space, focusing on the challenge at hand, which is given by the attention mechanism, and then deciding on what the output is, and of course presenting that output in a form that responds to the original request. I'm going to abuse your time with some of my sketches. So this is an LLM in Bogdan's mind. We have the story plot that we've discussed earlier. Basically, when interacting with an LLM, we take the story and squash it through the LLM entity that has an interface that converts the partial story that we present into the LLM-friendly format, and then it gets assembled into a completed story by going again through a machine to human interface. The way the story is presented to the LLM in that embedding space, into that knowledge space that Andrew was mentioning earlier, this is a space that is significantly larger than what our conscious mind works with. Andrew, I think, was mentioning in 2,500 dimensions. I think I've heard of even larger than that dimensions. So it's a much more complicated space than 3. Each of the tokens that has been converted to meaning and so on, create a composite vector that is projected in this space. So as we keep sequencing through tokens, we build this sum of meaning vectors in this very large meaning space. Although I'm not religious in a traditional way, my metaphor for this space, it's God's language, because this space, it's not spoken language dependent, it's not modality of input dependent. It's not about words, it's not about images, it's about experiences in the real world. It is built now out of text, and it's extended into the video world and so on. But the meaning space in here, it's not modality dependent. So as you add vectors, you have your estimate for the final story. The next graphic here, and I'm going to try and zoom into it and hope not to crush things. As you present your story, the chance of error for the output. Yeah? So if we start putting a question and the question is not complete, it didn't provide the right level of information, the output, the guess that the LLM has about the whole story has a wider chance of estimation of prediction than if we give more detail. So basically, the more we present in the prompt out of the story, out of the chain of meaning, the better the chance of retrieving from an LLM the right response or the right advice or the right decision for action. Let's see if I can back out. So basically, an LLM has the story processor, and the complete story. So partial story processor, and complete story. And of course, this is done currently and most convenient in a combination of software and hardware. And on the hardware side, the dominant player and it being NVIDIA, although I have strong hopes from the analog world of processing that would include capacitive, optic, and quantum processing, and so on. And I made mainly a note for me that LLMs have 2 states. One is the very expensive one, which is the training. And once training was completed, the landscape of weights that define the knowledge processing is used for inference, which is the cheap and the functionality that we experience mostly out there. A significant component in the functionality of LLMs is the attention mechanism. Attention mechanism, as I understand it, is a recursive pruning with rescaling. So if I go to ChatGPT right now online and I have asked, how can you make a cat happy? It's going to give me an answer that comes from that space of knowledge of 2,500 plus dimensions that includes the whole history of humanity that was ever developed, documented in a format that got digitized and so on, that includes the whole chat, nonsensical chat from social networks like Reddit and so on and so on and so on, that includes all the repositories of shared code and so on. So what I want to flag here for the attention mechanism is that effectively when we put a simple question and we get an answer, we get the needle out of the haystack, if that's the right metaphor in English. About output generation, what we don't see, but there.
Bogdan, you're breaking up. If you can hear me,
And
Bogdan.
I can hear you.
Yes,
Yes.
maybe you just back up a minute or so in your comment. I think people couldn't hear, or it may have been my connection.
Back to attention.
Yeah, just yes, as you were explaining about the cat.
Yes. So attention is a mechanism of pruning and rescaling in a recursive loop. It's done hundreds of times, and its purpose is to find that needle in the haystack of information. So most of our questions are very simple compared to the vastness of the knowledge space, the embedding space, the 2,500 plus dimensions that Andrew was mentioned earlier. So it is remarkable and mind-boggling. When you ask how can you use a striker for an LLM, the answer comes from the entity that has knowledge about the physiology of your body, the philosophical aspects of governance and democracy, and so on and so on and so on. So it is finding the needle in the haystack, and that's done through the attention mechanism. On the output side, the output is a choice between multiple variants, and that is usually masked in the LLM and the chatbots that we have now. But let me see. I don't know if you see. So this is an input, a visual input that shows obviously beer for us beer drinkers, and artificial neural network based classifier would have various outputs that are likely as apple or oranges or lemon or beer. and the most likely is pointed to as being beer. So that's the output that you get. So not only that you find the needle in the haystack, but there is a wealth of things that are proposed out of which you choose the right needle. Um, behind it, there is nothing magic. There is no ethereal soul flying or anything like that. Behind LLMs, we have digitized mathematics at work, vectors and vector spaces and vector mathematics, matrix multiplication of all kinds, rescaling and normalization, storage and retrieval, and so everything is man-made and man-enabled, so to speak. Peter has mentioned that there would be interest in the AI agents and their capabilities and so on. So I've aggregated some information on it. My view, which is has a historical dependency or influence. So I worked for IBM in automating processes, and I don't even remember. I think 2005 or so. There were a modeling protocol for processes, BPMN, and modeling language for processes, which was BPEL, business process something language. With them, you could define processes that were very crisp, so rigid. So you would have variables at the entry of the process, and then you would have variables that you would need to deliver at the end of that process. And that was it. The AI agents, as I understand them, currently implement this kind of process automation with the benefits that AI and LLMs and knowledge spaces bring to the table. And these are two integration protocols that are specific to AI, and this I think one of them is MCP and the other one is UCP, and we're going to discuss about them next. I see relevant in the world of, so AI agents are a reality. You can build now AI agents that are specialized for specific roles in a team. And of course, these are non-embedded agents. So we're talking for now about roles that do not require a body or so. So you can build an AI agent that does project management. You can build an AI agent that would do coding. You would build an AI agent that would do testing. You would build an AI agent that would do critical review of the coding. You would build an AI agent that would do UX review, so friendliness of interfaces from a human perspective, and of course, deployment and performance monitoring and so on. However, I consider, based on the tests that I've done myself, I consider this in its early stage. And I've presented here the notion of composability based on flexible, fuzzy type of features. Attunement, so searching for certain capabilities in a vague way. Yeah. When you're camping and you want to sit on something, you're going to look around to see what can serve as a chair for that moment. So that's the attunement, looking around for something that would keep you lifted from the ground level and not put extra tension on your knees. Affordance is the mirrored part of attunement, is something that is offered out there. A rock, it's not a chair until you've discovered it and it has the right size for you to sit on it, so to speak, and the right distance to the fire and so on. So attunement and affordance are two components that allow for finding what you need in a fuzzy, flexible way. Accordance is the match between the two. So when you hear somebody that it's structured and action-oriented and so on, and you think, he would be good for my team, falls in the accordance. And of course, if you don't engage, you haven't done anything. So these are the aspects that, in my opinion, become relevant in the world of AI agents. And I was mentioning earlier that when you build an agent, so when you aggregate things to execute a certain workflow, you can use APIs, which are crisp, very well-defined interfaces. Yeah, it's like a screw and a nut, and so you have little flexibility. You can use the new, I'm not sure if it's even 1 year old, MCP protocol. MCP stands for model something, model context protocol. It's an LLM specific protocol. So with this protocol, you can inquire what kind of affordances is a certain model offering. Again, the model is the knowledge space. It's the embedding space. Yeah? So what kind of capabilities is that model offering? And then with the attunement and accordance, glue flexibly to what is out there. Yeah? So you want to go on a cruise that is friendly to guys with a mustache. Yeah, you're gonna put that query there, and the agents will search for whatever search engine has the ability to select things that have mustache or refer to mustache and so on, and create that accordance and engagement in the vague domain, in the fuzzy domain, not the crisp domain. And following that, it's the UCP model, which is recently offered by Google. And this is UCP stands for Universal Commerce Protocol. So basically, this allows a flexible way of doing economic related engagements. So you're now targeting actually aspects of trust, legality, ethics, needs, and local capabilities, and so on and so on and so on. Risks, yeah. When something looks like being alive, we usually default by giving it the attribute of life and living. So it's very common and extremely dangerous in taking LLM and AI replies as final truths, while they're coming from a knowledge space, that exceeds a single individual's knowledge. They're not the ultimate truth by far. Ethical substitution, so delegating ethics to the machine, yeah. Relying on the fact that reinforcement learning might somehow, RLHF stands for reinforcement learning with human feedback. That doesn't guarantee that the human feedback has engraved ethics in the output of the AI. Accountability drift. Yeah, it's if ChatGPT said so, I'm going to do that. The meaning collapse, and this is not so much from the LLM as from the quality of the data that we put in. If you remember the power law distribution and the alpha parameter that I was mentioning, the messier the data, the less relevant from a sustainability and survivability point of view, the outcome of LLM advice is. Losing the will to manage your life. Governance abduction. A quick one about how an embodied LLM might work. So you have an event, some kind of a change in the context that needs to be processed. It takes energy to look through the knowledge space and find a response to that. If it's known, it's little energy. If it's unknown, it's a lot of energy. A lot of energy being in hundreds of megawatts to thousands of megawatts. And then it triggers an output, which is an enterprise of some sort. For digital agents, it's digital and it needs humans. For embodied agents, these are the examples that I was mentioning, and I see that I'm pigging out here, both on time and on examples. So these two are examples of embodied LLMs, and specifically this work with OpenAI's LLM. This is a controller that it's supposed to maintain vertically a pendulum, and it didn't succeed. It became satisfied with barely holding it for a short time instead of trying to reach the ultimate result, which was the stable vertical pendulum. So it got quickly satisfied with good enough, so to speak. And this is a Roomba-like robot with an LLM interface attached on top of it that is moving around in the student's apartment and pretty much collapsing things that was supposed to avoid. And again, this is the vehicle I've designed. I've designed means as part of the team of 57 plus engineers with an average age of probably 23 or 24. This is Port Coquitlam, BC. AI concerns economic and financial risk because they will have economic and financial implications. Costs that we do not see currently, costs that are absorbed and kept behind the curtain. Most of the use currently is free for things that, if I recall correctly, an answer from an LRM, which is a LLM with a rational correction applied to it, is in to a short question is in $280 or so $280 for a one proposition question or one paragraph answer, so to speak.
Yeah.
The market bubble that it's creating, the risk for attention economy, and I've missed that the process of training has a weakness, and this is a weakness that is specific to AI as well as to humans. But it's related to that power law distribution, and that is that a very small amount of intentionally manipulated training data can compromise the accuracy from a relevance point of view of the answer. And this is the risk of data poisoning. And it's extremely significant for LLMs, but even more so for humans. So in the LLM space, again, if I recall correctly, the size of a poisoning set, training set, in a training set of 10 billion data sets, it's 250. So if you mix, not as a package, distributed in a training set, 250 poisoned training data sets, you've actually compromised the output without knowing until that compromised set of patterns gets activated. Cognitive and creative erosion, whatever you delegate, you lose. Yeah. So if, whatever you delegate, you lose. Safety management, which is, in my opinion, but Peter is much better. It's totally in the air. It's totally gifted to profit making. And social and environmental harms. At this moment, AIs are energy pigs. So we do the pigs. Sorry, I'm offending the pigs. They're just shredders, so to speak. I'm sure we're going to improve. I'm sure the efficiency of processing patterns will increase. But if we put costs together, I wouldn't be surprised to bring humans back online, so to speak, in specific roles with specific, but the environmental harm has relevance. Peter, how are we time-wise, and the rest of the audience too? Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing fine, Bogdan. You're about 15 slides from your end, I guess, something like that. And there's a few
Yeah,
transition slides like this. So we'll be finished about 3 o'clock, I would think, in the conversation. Then we can turn to our open session.
I'll try and zoom as fast as I can. So life and living, yeah, we're starting as a cell, and we're going through that continuous growth, specialization, composition, and in a recursive way, embryo, fetus, newborn, baby, toddler, and so and so and so. As a grandparent with granddaughters out there, I'm amazed to see this steps and this progression of growth, which is anchored in growth with specialization and integration and pruning. I've put here a quick representation of the phases, intrauterine phases, with the specific intent to point to that hypothesis that ontogeny follows phylogeny. And the relevance of that comes from new research that's in my opinion, that's going to revolutionize biology, physiology, and medicine in the very near future, which is the impact of environment on what genes do in the process of growth. There is a research group that can be found if you search for the name Professor Michael Levin, that is looking into the impact that bioelectric messages have on the instantiation of the genome. So in the process of division of cells, the resulting cells specialize, and their choice of specialization is the result of what the community of cells communicate to the new cells through bioelectric signals. So it's a composition of context and capabilities defined by the genome. I've used in one of the papers that I've published the notion of rolling carpet that you assemble while walking on it. The relevance of the Michael Levin research, which he's doing in Tufts University laboratory, that it's very, very well funded, allows for the stop of an embryo in intermediate phases that are defined as final phases. And the intermediate phase takes a phylogenetically valid form. That means the embryo can be stopped to versions of species that are extinct currently, but have been viable tens to hundreds of millions of years back in the phylogenetic tree. Putting aside the issues of ethics and so on that this thing raises, the relevance that I wanted to bring forth is this aspect of composition of differentiated things within a context, in dialogue with that context. Our old autopoiesis with languaging, intrinsic autopoiesis and structural coupling. The structural coupling is the part that talks to the context within the intrauterine environment, the various phases of the fetus secure their own context, limited context within this languaging takes place, where the intrinsic autopoiesis and structural coupling can be identified. Of course, the simpler the form of life, the easier the understanding. Again, I brought forth in one of my recent papers the concept of mutual viability constraint. And I'm proposing that this condition, it's what pushes that rolling carpet forward. So with every division, cellular division, with every specialization of the new cells, a new dialogue takes place between the multicellular entity and its context, where the mutual viability constraint is verified and applied in a flexible way, through languaging, through that composability, fuzzy composability that we've talked earlier. I divided child emergence in a couple of phases. First of all, and I'm sure there will be some laughs, in my book about child emergence, childhood never ends. So life is a continuous sequence of transcendences, of changes, of improvements in the knowledge that we have. So the sage age, where you're supposed to be mentally settled and serene, doesn't do that for you, from my point of view, all the way up to the last tick, so to speak. But in this process of emergence, we have initially an unsupervised learning, the forming of that system one, Kahneman system one component of one's mind, in which you feel and you pull your own classes, you keep tokenizing and tessellating the experiences that you have. And when I'm saying experiences, I'm going all the way down to the cell that has a proteic sensor that goes out through the cell membrane and interacts with other molecules outside the cell and so on. So the unsupervised learning starts from the first cell and it goes on. Then we enter, of course, supervised learning, where parents and caregivers and educators and mentors put their stamp. And one item that I want to highlight is the stigmergic component. This is the virtual mind that social interaction brings to the table. Stigmergy was proposed in the insect world, and it's less common to be used in higher level animal domains, so to speak, social domains and so on. But in my opinion, it's present there. And stigmergy is the brain that results from our social interactions, intended and unintended and so on. Yeah. So throwing garbage down instead of putting it in a garbage box outside in your city will seed disorder and a certain level of anxiety and stress in others that would trigger a less courteous type of driving or so. At the same time, structured answer, like Carney's comment at the Davos and so on, infuse a bias towards structure in people's lives all the way to you washing your dishes and putting them back. And for the sage phase, the point that I wanted to make is that based on my research, the purpose in life is to pass forward the verified survival knowledge that you have acquired. So the things that you have verified as helping you live your life in serenity in your context. Once you clean them and push them forward, you've done your job as a form of life. So as I've mentioned, integration with that MVC, mutual viability constraint, leads to persistence, and that is the constant signature. Failure modes are either chaos, so lack of structure, or uniformity. And we can project that from ways of material aggregation to ways of social aggregation and so on. Heal, understand, integrate, and regrow. And this illustration here has a personal meaning. This is the way, the methodology, you pull monocrystal of silicon. You melt crystals, you touch them with a monocrystal, and then when you pull that seed up with a controlled speed, the bar that you extract, the silicon holds to that crystal, and it cools down and it forms a very thick bar. And within this bar, the cooled liquid crystal replicates the monocrystalline structure. So in this way, you bring order into disorder. Yeah. And the anecdote with this is that in the 1980s Romania, that was within the socialist countries, was under embargo for certain technologies. Yeah, so this is second-hand embargo. We didn't have access to the monocrystal pulling technology. So the only operators that could pull monocrystal were female operators. Male operators didn't have the mechanical, the control skills because the speed of extraction was manually controlled by the operator. So the only operators that we had, and I think that was like 5 women for the whole country, were females. And for those females, if they had flu or some kind of a source of stress, even conflict at work or at home, they would lose the capability. Hence the MacLean model of mind and so on. Bringing all together, so people, and this is, of course, you can see here the Gemini mark. So this is the previous dog with the green that with dogs doesn't look always friendly. Positive. As long as we succeed, as long as we focus on the socio-economic system, again, with accent of society, on the social aspect of the economy, and we extend the mutual viable constraint to include the AI capability, then AI becomes a viability amplifier. So AI has the possibility, again, given we enforce the primordial role of the social within the social economic context. And a proper integration would do this and that and that, and long-term sustainability. And for risks, the misalignment, it's a classic one. The centralization, the power hub aspect seems to me very relevant. Again, the power law distribution, it's a universal. You find it in the internet popularity of web pages. You find it everywhere. If you want to evaluate if reviews for a book are honest, you have to look into the rating, and if it aligns to a power law distribution, it's likely to be honest. If it skews from the power law, it's engineered. It's a fake review. If humans adapt to machines, you've lost attunement. Like the composite of human and machines, which is our species currently, it's gonna be scheduled for extinction. Erosion of agency, which is again very frequent. I've seen it in teams of humans. I'm expecting to see it with the influx of digital agents. So the advice designed for attunement, attunement is to be open in what you search. So attunement first, not control. Do not impose. Look for what's available out there from a differentiation point of view, and take the different and put it where it should. 1999, as part of a startup for finding breast cancer at home with an ultrasound scanner at home, we've discovered that specific diseases that were considered as mental handicaps give actually higher capabilities of identifying patterns in dot distribution in mammograms than for what we consider healthy individuals. So these were tests done in Poland, actually. The company and my startup were in Toronto, Canada. But Poland was more flexible from an ethics point of view and so on at that time. The point here is that there is always value in differentiation as long as it succeeds to integrate, to compose. The conclusion that I wanted to highlight here out of the chain of advices is revocable centrality. This is, so you remember power law distribution, yeah? And there are very few nodes that have a very high impact on the resilience and stability of the system. Those nodes need to be re-examined and updated as per their centrality as frequently as possible within that system. This is what revocable centrality means here, and it's a technology and modeling derived concept behind probably the elections that the political systems have, the periodical elections that the political systems have, where the head of a certain governance structure gets to be periodically renewed, even if the performance is considered as high. So, of course, the goal is mutual viability, a goal across difference. Warnings and such. And I've put here an example of the flattering that the Google Gemini AI has given me for the concept of rolling carpets, which is difficult to stand away. It's difficult. It's difficult to resist. Yeah. We've never considered the true figures behind anything that's actually behind the AI agency and AI agents that we keep talking about. So we're showing robots with the $20,000 cost of purchase. That price doesn't reflect in any way the fair share of material and energy expenses behind the hardware and the knowledge behind those units. They don't reflect maintenance and repairs, expertise, licenses, and energy accountability issues, insurance, and so on and so on. So we're just at the beginning on a journey riding that rolling carpet that we keep waving as we roll. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you, Bogdan. That was a most interesting presentation from my perspective, and you raised a number of interesting connections of things.